In this video, we'll be using our graphing calculator to look at a couple of problems. Our first problem, use a graphing calculator to graph the equation and identify intercepts. And our equation is x squared plus 4y squared equals 4. Now this equation is in implicit form. When you have x's and y's all mixed up on one side of the equation, that's called implicit. And we need to solve for y to get the explicit form so that we can use our graphing calculator. So let's subtract x squared from both sides. And then divide by 4 on both sides. So this gives us, these will cancel, and I have y squared is equal to 1 minus 1/4 x squared. And then square root both sides. So we have y equals plus or minus the square root of 1 minus 1/4 x squared. Now we have this in a form where we can graph it on our calculator. And we'll need to do these in two separate equations, so let's do the positive square root. 1 minus, and I'm going to use 0.25, and then x squared. Right, and then if we graph the negative square root, right, so we have what looks like an ellipse. Now if you were fortunate enough to learn about ellipses in maybe a pre-calc class, you know that we could take this equation and make the right side equal to 1 by dividing all of our terms by 4. So we'd have x squared over 4 plus y squared over 1 equals 1. And this is the standard form for an ellipse with a vertex x at plus or minus 2 and vertex for y at plus or minus 1. These are major vertices and then minor vertices. So this is the graph of our ellipse. But we can also get a value here if it wasn't obvious. We could find second calc. So second and then the calc button right here, trace. So second calc, and we can find the value, which is our first option, when x is 0. And we say that when x is 0, y is 1. So we have intercepts of 0 and plus or minus 1, since this is symmetric with respect to the x-axis. So for my y to be 0, I would need to solve this. X squared plus 4 times 0 squared equals 4. So x squared is equal to 4, which means x is equal to plus or minus 2. So when y is 0, we have plus or minus 2, 0. Let's do another one. Use a graphing calculator to find the points of intersection of the graphs. Check your results analytically. And we're looking at y equal x to the fourth minus 2x squared plus 1 and y equal 1 minus x squared. Now we're going to use the graphing calculator, but we could easily, this factors into x squared minus 1 quantity squared. We could easily graph this one. We know that it's going to be both arms up. And this one is a parabola that opens down. But let's go ahead and use our graphing calculator. We have x raised to the fourth power minus 2x squared plus 1, and then 1 minus x squared. Let's look at these graphs. The first one will be my fourth degree, and the second one is my second degree. Now we have a little smooshing, it's kind of crowded right in here. These do not lay on top of each other. So what I'm going to do is change my window and even do that even better. Minus 2, 2, and then minus 2, 2. There we go. Okay. So we want to find their points of intersection, and it looks like I'm going to draw a sketch, because anytime you're asked to do graphing calculator, you should do a sketch on your paper as well as looking at your calculator. So here's 1 and negative 1 and positive 1. So this parabola looks like this. And then my other one is the one that's below here. He's going to go through these points, and he's coming down and like this. So this is actually more of a, there you go. Alright, so to me it looks like we have negative 1, 0, and then 0, 1, and then 1, 0. But we could do our second calc button, and we have the choice 5 is intersect, and we want to choose, we want the first curve, so just press enter, and the second curve is this one, y2, we'll press enter, and then a guess, well, we can find this one up here since I'm already sitting there. Our guess, press enter, and it tells us that the point is 0, 1, which is what we said here. Alright, let's do that again. Second calc and choose 5. And I'll just do one other one. Let's do, we need to pick our curve. So first curve, second curve, and then we need a guess. Now we need to move our cursor close to that point. So that should be close enough. And we see 1, 0, and that's what we picked here. So we want to check our results analytically. Now remember, the way to determine points of intersection is to solve the two equations simultaneously. So since they're both equal to y, I would set them equal to each other. So we have x to the fourth minus 2x squared plus 1 is equal to 1 minus x squared. Right? It looks like if I subtract 1 from both sides, those will cancel. And let's add x squared to both sides. And that'll give me a 0 on the right. And then I have x to the fourth minus 1x squared. And then this is gone. So this can be solved by factoring. Now, I've had students before who would try to move this x squared to the right and divide both sides by x squared, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to divide by a variable because there's the possibility that that variable could equal 0, and division by 0 is undefined. So we'll factor this by pulling out an x squared, and I'm left with x squared minus 1. And then the zero factor property says that if the product of two factors is 0, then set each factor equal to 0, x squared equals 0, and x squared minus 1 equals 0. So this is saying x is equal to 0, and this one we can add 1 to both sides. So x squared is equal to 1, square root both sides, x is equal to plus or minus 1. Now those are the x values of our points. If you put 0 in for x, we have y equals 1. So that point was the point 0, 1. If you put positive 1 in for x, I have y equals 0 because if you put either positive 1 or negative 1 here, you'll get y equals 0. So that gives us the points 1, 0 and negative 1, 0.